So I've gotten a lot of decent handful of people asking for tutorials. I've made one in the past, but I'm gonna try to make another. A few people have asked me for either Lineart tutorials or asked how to get my Lineart smooth. I'm going to try to explain the different Lineart styles that I use, and this tutorial might be applicable towards other programs like Photoshop or Fire Alpaca, but I'm going to explain it in a way that's going to assume you're using Paint Tool Sai. So this might specifically be for Paint Tool Sai. I don't know if you can use it towards other programs, but anyway, sorry if you don't have Sai, and hopefully it's helpful either way. Quick apology. My dog's running around. He snorts and moves things, so sorry if you hear him doing his dog thing. Anyway, some of the styles are newer for me, mainly Style 1 and Style 2, but I do dabble in 4 different art styles of line art. I'm going to try to go into details on detail on styles 1 through 3, and style number 4 I've already made a tutorial on, and I'm going to try to get this done in one take, so it really depends on how long it takes me to get 1, 2, 3 taken care of, and I might touch upon 4 a little bit more. But otherwise I'll put a link in the description towards my old tutorial, even if it is a little dated. And that old tutorial is on style 4, and it's on the lineless art style. Anyway, just to be clear, this is specifically about the line art process. I'm not going to get much into coloring or shading, and the sketch I'm working on top of is specifically for my art style, so I'm not going to go in that much either. I encourage you to find your own art style or work style, and you can use these skills along those way and do it what you want. Do whatever you want with them. I'm just trying to give my process. Anyway, a quick summary of each outline style before I get started. Style 1 shown is a thick outline with varying line weight that is kind of dramatic. I aim to go for like a brush pen look, but I can't use a brush pen to save my life in real life. But I can at least try to get that effect digitally. And I've used this style a few times, but I definitely want to play with it more. It's really fun. Style 2 is a thin, kind of detailed outline. I start off very thin and then add weight where I think it is appropriate. This style is also newer to me, but I've been playing with it a bit recently. If you've noticed from my recent speed paints, I'm trying to push myself to get better with this style so I can do more detailed pieces with it. The third art style, or outline style, sorry, is a thicker outline, but the line weight is a little bit more controlled. I try to add some variation, but it's mostly consistent. I like to add color to make it a little bit more interesting, but I'll show it first in black and white, and then, or black, not white. Anyway, I'll show it first in black, and then I'll show how to add color to it as well, and you can add color to any of the styles through the same method. And the fourth style is the style that up till this point I do the most often. It's simpler, but that doesn't mean it's easier. It's I try to use more solid colors and shapes and try to add outlines only whenever necessary, so I try to keep it limited. It relies a lot on color choice, so the wrong colors can really make it look off. Anyway, so a lot of this relies on size brush settings, but I'm not going to pretend like I know how size brushes work. These are brushes that came with the version of Sai I have, but a lot of people tell me that their versions of Sai don't come with them, so I'm going to show you the different brushes I use. I mainly use 2 different brushes for my line art. but I adjust the size settings as I need them. And these are the settings for the brushes I use. Okay. There we go. Alright. So, style 2 and 3, I use the same brush for. But I just changed the sizes. Style 1 is a different brush. Let me number them. Oh, well. There we go. I have my, if you look over to the side, this is my sketch brush settings if you're interested in that, but that's not what this is about. Anyway, style 2 and 3, I use the same brush for, or the same line art brush for. And it's all the same, except for the size. So everything else is the same. So if you want to duplicate the brush to have the same line art brush, go ahead. Just make sure you duplicate all the settings. I don't know what these settings mean. A little bit. I know a little bit what they mean. I'm not going to pretend like I know in detail, so I'm not really going to explain it. So if you just want to copy the settings, go for it. So styles 2 and 3 are the same brush. For styles 4, which I'm not going to get much into, I use the same brush as 3 for 4. But that's not the point of the video. So I'm just going to go into 1 through 3. 1 through 3. Which... Anyway. And then 1, I use a different brush for. This was my coloring brush. And I was playing with one day, and I decided, oh, I like the way that looks. But I'll go into each brush as I go through each style and kind of explain why I use them and stuff like that, and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna start with the thick outline, style 1. I'm just referring to style 1, 2, and 3 to kind of keep my brain from getting confused, and hopefully so you won't get confused, because I'm a really bad talker. That's why I don't talk in my videos. But anyway, just for point of reference, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I'm not going to go into 4 much. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's get started. And I'm really sorry about my dog again. I'm just going to apologize again, because as soon as I start recording, he's just snorting and snooting and running around and making noise, and I can't make him not make noise, so I'm sorry. Anyway, here's my sketch. I've already, I started with a kind of simpler sketch, and I cleaned it up to make it easier, but you do whatever process you like doing for this particular... Anyway, you do what you want to do for the sketch. This is just how I do it. I like to leave my less detailed sketch underneath, but on a lower opacity, just so I can kind of see some of those lines, so I kind of, I don't know, that's just what I do. You do what you want, that doesn't matter. Anyway, lower the opacity, and I'm starting with the first brush set. First, can't talk, brush settings. Okay, so that's this one here. I keep this one size pretty large, so I have it as a 100, and this is going to vary completely on how comfortable you are with your pressure sensitivity, and it might even depend on your tablet pen quality. I don't know. I have a fairly expensive tablet, so it may vary, so you might want to lower it, lower the size to your needs. But I'm just gonna show you what I mean and how I use the pen. Anyway, one thing, especially for this style, for me to get the effect that I get, I have my stabilizer, if you're using Psy, which, like I said before, this is assuming you're using Psy, at S7, which is the highest. Boop, boop, boop. And if you're not familiar with the stabilizer, I'll just go into a quick little detail about it. So here's my pen, stabilizer 0. It's very thick, It's like too thick, but that's how I'm gonna keep it. I'm keeping it at 100 just for, but you adjust it as you need it. Stabilizer at 0, stabilizer at 10. It kind of smooths it out. Ooh, 10's pretty nice. I don't use 10 that much, but notice the tapering, how it tapers really thin at the end. So if you have a lot of control, you can keep your pen really thin or thick it out. And I have shaky hands, so whenever I have a lower stabilizer, you can tell it's shaky. Like, it just, you can tell. I don't know how you work. I have shaky hands. So stabilizer 10, stabilizer S1, which is pretty good, but I still have shaky hands, so I like S7, and that is my favorite. And it sorry, let me just show you. When it's on S7, not only do I have a really smooth line, but I can also just, I feel like I have a lot of control on my pressure sensitivity. I can just, I don't know, I can make it do whatever I want. And like I said, this also might depend on what tablet you have. So if your tablet doesn't have as strong as a sensitivity gauge, I don't know, then you might want to use a smaller brush. Like, I like to use the high brush because I like to really control. For this particular style, I like to have a really like dramatic effect. Anyway, I'm gonna turn this one off now and just kind of start going and pretend like I know what I'm doing. Okay, I'm gonna start at the eyes, and so you see the sigh. Does it show on here? Yes, it does. Okay, sorry, I had to make sure that my OBS was recording my mouse eyes. Anyway, you can see that it's pretty big brush. And then I'm gonna go in and just kind of really control my line weight, and it's not even right now, or it doesn't match with my sketch right now. I'm going to go in and add it. The eyelashes are kind of a little bit different than the rest of it. I have thick, I draw my characters with thick eyelashes, so if you don't have thick eyelashes, then, or your character, if you don't draw with thick eyelashes, it won't be the same process for you. But I'm just going to start with the eyelashes, and for the eyelashes, I do have to go in a couple times and kind of fill it in. I'm gonna use my bucket tool, just fill that in. But then, anyway, see how I can go from like this thin, pretty eyelash, and then do like thick eye. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's. So for the nose, the bridge of the nose, I like to kind of show the thickness change. I like to add some thickness towards the end of the nose and down where the shadow will be. And as for where to put the thickness, for this particular style, I just kind of add it. The thickness kind of comes naturally to where I want it to go. But for me, a kind of rule of thumb, but I don't really follow it for this, is where the shadows are, where your shadows are going to be, or where I like to add the thickness, or the things that you just want to stick out the most. Just going to fix the eyelash a little bit. Where you want the, sorry, what words? So the nose comes out of the face, so just thicken it there. I don't know. Just, I like to make a thick outline on the nose. And then for the lips, if you draw lips, not everyone draws lips. I draw lips. I like a really thin outline on top, and just kind of, and then where the cleft, where the lip kind of goes out, I go out. And then there's some shadow in here, so just kind of, ooh, that's a little bit too thick. Sometimes you might, I might adjust the brush for thinner areas to make it easier, but you know, for the purpose of the video, I'm just gonna leave it the same to kind of show. Because sometimes I'm lazy, I don't like to adjust it. Another thing with this brush is the look I'm kind of going for is like a words, is a like a brush pen look. So it's not perfectly smooth. It's got some edges on there, and for me, for the good look of this particular style, that's I'm fine with it, you know, not being perfect. Because if you have a brush pen, if you have a brush on paper, it's not gonna necessarily be perfect. I really shouldn't have started as this as the first style, because this is the one I've done the least. So, and also, it's probably not what anybody knows me for doing, so they're gonna be like, yeah, I want to see how you do line art, and they're like, what are you doing? That's not how you do line art. So, not the best example, but, or not the best starting point, but that's where I started, and that's where I've already started, and I'm not going to do a double take. I'm trying to get this in as one go, or else I'm going to just be here for hours. Anyway, I'm going to start, I like to start on things, the face first. That's my starting method. You can go wherever. And then I did the eyebrow, when I did the eyebrows, I do it kind of dumb for eyebrows, is I do the eyebrows on top of the hair, and that might bug people, but I like really expressive big eyebrows, so they come on top of the hair. They go on top of the hair. That doesn't make sense in real life, but that's how I do it. You do it how you want. This is how I'm doing it. So what I'll do is I'll do the eyebrows first, and then I'll go on a new layer, like underneath or something, and then I'll do the hair. And I have a little clef here, so I'm gonna and then I'll stop at the eyebrow, or you can keep going and erase it, but I like it goes really thick and it thins out, and then since it's real thin here, I'm just gonna continue right here at really like sharp points. I like to make it really thin. So, and then do it again. Basically start out thick, swing out small. See, you don't want to do it the other way. Start out thick, swift out small. That's kind of the way I do it throughout the whole through this whole process, but it might vary, depending. And obviously, I'm just doing like the head and the shoulders. Doing the body might be a little bit more of a process, but we'd be here forever if I was gonna do a whole body. So I'm just I know this isn't super detailed, and a lot of this might be like, yeah, that's common sense or whatever. I don't know. People ask me for a line art tutorial, okay, and this is just me attempting to do line art. So I'm gonna pretend like I know how to use words, and where things kind of intersect, like with the hair on the eyebrows, especially with hair, because hair thins out at the bottom, kind of, I guess. There's more volume at the top than there's more volume at the top of the head than at the bottom, because I guess that's hair works. And also, whenever it like intersects with things, I try to make it look thinner. Like, say where the eye is, I kind of make it look thinner. And if you want to make things make sense, you can erase. Like, okay, I realized that I have it on different layers. I'm gonna merge my layers now, because originally I was going to like do it like that and then erase so you can see my eyebrow, but that's just but I didn't do that. So anyway, I'm gonna go back to one layer now. Blah, blah, blah. This is hardly a tutorial. This is just me making noise out of my face and hoping it makes sense. It's just me drawing at a slower pace, I guess, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm not good at teaching things. It's funny because I kind of wanted to be a teacher, but that's not happening now. I'm 25 and I ain't pursued that, so that ain't happening. That ain't happening. Anyway, I think I'm gonna go into a time lapse now. and I'll kind of jump back in if I feel like there's new information for me to say. So you can just watch me draw now without my voice. I'm just going to chime in real quick. Where lines intersect, and I'm going to go more into this in the later styles as well. So where the shoulder hit the neck and where the hair hits the neck, I like to add some additional weight. So just going to go in. So where it hit here, I like to kind of fill it in and kind of even it out and add like a, not an artificial shadow. Well, here I add an artificial shadow. I like to add a little bit extra to add more weight to it to kind of, I don't know how to explain it, like my reasons behind it. I think it looks good. Okay, that's like the most important part, I guess. There's reasoning behind it. I just don't know how to say it with words. I'm gonna go ahead and do that here too. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Where the jawline would be, say if her hair wasn't there, I'm making it there. If her hair wasn't there, I'd make the jawline like start off a little bit thicker and go with the, and then kind of have the jaw. That's besides the point. Basically, where kind of bones are, where hardness is, kind of. I don't necessarily follow this rule. I kind of make it thinner. If you want something to look pointier, make it thinner at the end. There we go. But not necessarily, because I don't always follow that rule. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about the little boop, boop, boop right there at the, where lines intersect. There we go. Words. Okay. And I think that's it for right now. I'll go back to shutting up. Alright, I think I'm mostly done here. The last step for the line art portion, well, I'm done with the line art part. I left, if you notice on my sketch, I have like a little area where I put little highlights, and that's where I'm going to add those in. Also, if you noticed, I went in and I was just kind of cleaning up just stray little, sometimes little line hairs will come out. I just clean those up at the end and just fill in any loose ends. Fill in any loose ends to make sure there's no open spaces. That just kind of helps with the coloring. Anyway, I'm going to throw this all in a folder over here. Just going to throw it in a folder for easier organization later. And I'm going to add a little highlight that's going to go on top of the line art. If you don't do this with your art, you don't need to do it. But I add little highlights in there. And also, some people won't even like outline the eye like that, or like fill in the pupil like that. But for this particular kind of thick outline style, I like a dramatic, or I don't know if dramatic's the word, a really dark pupil that just is the color of the outline, which in this case is black. And then I'll put on top of that layer, add a little highlight, just kind of to add some, also because it's kind of, I do like an awkward kind of pupil to iris transition that I just cover up with my highlight. That's just how I do it. I'm not the greatest at detailed eyes. That's just how I do. And also, I'll go into the bucket tool a little bit more later maybe, but when I did the iris, I was speeding through, but when I did the iris, I basically, you know, made sure it was closed, and I used the bucket tool, and if you come down here, follow my mouse, see that color difference. I like to keep it at least 200. It just makes for a nice, clean, filled in circle, so that, say if I have it at like a low number, you get little white spots. I don't know if not everybody seems to know about the color difference in the bucket tool, and so sometimes I'll see little white spots. It just, the higher your bucket tool number, the no white spottier it is. Okay, that's besides the point. Anyway, I made my little highlights red just so I can see where they are. I'm gonna get rid of the small ones. I don't need the small ones. Well, where did... Okay, there. Just gonna get rid of... Okay. Anyway, I made them red just so I can see because I have a white background. So if I made them white, it'd be harder to see. Anyway, I'm going to go to preserve opacity up at the top. Click that. That's important. Click that. Fill it in, whatever color you want. I'll go into more in detail on the preserve opacity later for the third line art style. But hopefully if you're using Psy, you know about preserve opacity. Not everybody does, surprisingly, so it's a handy little trick. Anyway, I'm just going to go quickly into coloring. Just real basic, bare bones. Since this is a bust, it has a, in blah, 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 it's open at the bottom. So, what I'm going to do, just to make coloring easier, because I'm really lazy, and just, this is not going to be a super finished piece, it's just for the tutorial, but I'm really lazy, so I have my line art in a folder. I keep everything in folders. I have my line art in a folder, and then on a separate layer within that folder, make sure it's separate, or do whatever you want, I don't care. I go in and just take my tool and just kind of lightly where the open end is, and go boop, just to make a little closing. And then I'll go to my folder. This is for coloring, by the way, if you have no idea what I'm doing. I'm gonna make another folder for coloring. I'm gonna name my folders to make it easier on y'all. You should name your folders anyway. I'm just lazy. Anyway, so I got my line art folder, and I'm gonna... This is how I color, okay? Usually. Sometimes. Anyway, I got my line art folder with my ugly line right there. I got my coloring folder. I'm gonna make a, I'm gonna do the skin tone, where that opening is. I'm gonna just go ahead and start with that. So that's gonna be my skin tone. Name that. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna go to my line art folder. I misspelled line art. Line out. My line art folder with the entire folder selected. And then I'm gonna go to my little magically bloop bloop. I like to have my magically bloop bloop thing, magic wand, that's what it's called. Okay, and I have it usually at 200, and I just kind of pick. Oh nope, that's too strong. Okay, I'm gonna lower it for this demonstration. I'm gonna lower it to like 100. There we go. Just basically pick it around until I get my skin tones colored and make sure it doesn't select the rest of the hair. And this method works especially for the super thick outline, and I'll show you why in a second. So, have my color difference and I have it picked. And if I was to color it now, just pick a random skin tone. If I was to color it now, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. Well, that's fine, but there's like some white in there. So, I'm not gonna do that now, just yet. Anyway, backtrack. I have my color selected, all my area that I want colored selected, and the cool thing about Psy is it makes it blue, it makes it easy to see. I have my whole selected, and since this is a very thick outline, it makes this easier. I go to selection, up here, and increment 1. And depending on how thick your outline is, you can get away with doing more. This just makes it where it colors more thoroughly. Oh, see, I did that too much, so I'm going to go to increment and just increment it by 1. Increase the selection by 1 pixel. And that just makes it to where I won't have as many, hopefully none, stray white lines. And if you color this like the non-lazy people way, then you don't have to worry about this. But I'm lazy, so I use the selection tool. So anyway, and it colors. I don't quite like the skin tone. Okay, there we go. Anyway, now I can go, now that that's colored, I can delete my ugly little line. And if you want to make it to where this isn't such a harsh thing, you can go in and blur it on. It don't matter. Okay, Now I'm just gonna inspect my, oops, make sure that there's no white lines. Okay. So we're good. And I'm just gonna do that coloring for the rest of the thing. This tutorial isn't about coloring. I just wanted to show you that neat little trick about filling in if you don't already know. Hopefully you already know, but now if you don't know, you know. Okay, alright. Let me zoop doop, make it go fast. So that style number 1 is done. I added some simple highlight. I'm not gonna shade it, just a quick little highlight, and I muted the colors a little bit to make it look a little bit more markery, penny, whatever. And I added a light texture in there just to kind of add to the look, make it look like, maybe it was done with a pen on paper. Anyway, that's not the point of the video, so let's get on to style number 2. So I'm gonna just turn the opacity on that off and get to style number 2. Alright. Let's, in case you forgot, or you haven't, or you whatever, here is the pin setting for number 2. And I'm already like 30 minutes in to this video, so this is gonna be a while, maybe. This style takes me the longest, almost the longest. Maybe number 4 takes me almost as long, but we're not gonna go into that too much, so. Anywho, this one takes me the kind of longer. I'll try to make this quick. Try to make it make sense. Let me zoom in on there. So I'll either start at the size being 0.5 or being 1. So sometimes I'll have it at 1, sometimes I have it 0.5. Depends on how detailed I want it, depends on how thin I want it. So I'll leave that up to your discretion, whatever you want to do. Moral of the story, it is a thin outline. That's the most important part, kind of. You can probably apply these methods to other outline sizes too. This is just about how I do it for this particular way. Okay, so there's 1, there's 0.5. I think I'll start with 0.5. I honestly, this one I play around with. And this one I also tend to use stabilizer 7, S7. Sometimes I'll do like a lower S number, like 5 or 4. This one really, it's as I go. The first style, the thick outline, it honestly, it doesn't take me very long to do. I'm pretty quick about it. I'm not doing too much detail. This one, I'm a little bit more precise. I try to add a little bit more to it. And let me make a new folder. I kind of, sometimes I don't use the stabilizer quite as much. Just depends on how I feel. So I'm just gonna jump into it, and I guess I'll just start with the eyelashes here, like I do, like the face and stuff. Too zoomed in. I might try to speed up more in this one to make it go by a little bit quicker, and just so you can see the process. For eyelashes, sometimes I'll go in and like how the first style is like filled in. Sometimes I'll just do a thick filled in eyelash. Sometimes I'll do the outline the eyelash as if it was an object. I'm going to do that in here just for demonstration, and I might go in and color it in well, we'll see. I'll decide as I go. A lot of people don't do the real thick eyelashes like I do, so it just, you know, depends on how you do eyelashes. Or whatever. You do anything the way that you want to do. This isn't a how-to. This is just what I do. And trying to kind of get my input. So I'm going to start at 0.5 and just kind of go in and do the outline. And I do a lot of, like, swiffy motions with this one. I don't just... I mean, sometimes I will. If I'm speeding through, like, oh my god, I just want it to be done, I'll just kind of go in like that. But I like this outline style to look a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit nicer, I guess. A little bit, I like the varying line weight, and I like getting it pretty thin and soft looking, so sometimes I'll do little swishes. I wouldn't do swishes too much because then your lines might have trouble meeting up. But I just kind of try to get it kind of more naturally done. Sometimes I'll turn off the stabilizer and just kind of go work my way through it. But that takes forever. And I don't want to be here forever. So I'm going to use my stabilizer and just try to make it go a little bit quicker. And for eyelashes, they're kind of wispy. So I kind of try to add a little bit of wispiness in there. Go in and I don't like it to be all one width, so I'll go in where things kind of intersect a little bit. For eyelashes, it's not as important because I might just end up filling them in anyway, so I don't want to go in and make super detailed looking outline on my eyelashes if I'm just going to fill it in. But just to demonstrate, I just kind of... I like the way it looks. I don't know. It might be too thin, but I like the way it looks. That's all that matters. All that matters is that you like the way it looks. And that's the most important part. For the eye, I'm not, like the iris itself, I don't know if I'm going to fill it in all the way. I might leave some of the work to whenever I'm coloring it. For this style, I don't necessarily block in all my shapes. Some of it is kind of impression. I can't talk. I have a little bit of a stuttering problem, and I try not to let it show. Line impressions. There we go. I'm wasting time. Okay, let's just get started. Get going. I'm just gonna leave a little opening over here, and I think I'm going to actually erase the line where the eyelash meets the pupil. For me personally, this is just me. I make my pupil the same color as my eyelash a lot of times, or I'll do a gradient effect or whatever. But I like to leave an opening between the two. You do you. That's just what I do. Anyway, and where these little lines meet, I like to make little, like to kind of build on it a little bit. And so for example, I'll have like whenever an angle's hit, like that. I like to add darkness in between, and then I go in and thicken the outline and kind of make it thin out to add some different weight in there. This is why this style takes me a long time, because I like to just play around and I just add weight throughout. I'm going to go ahead and outline the pupil too, so that it's separated from the iris, kind of. Probably throw the highlights in there after. So I'm going to leave this open. And I'll throw that highlight in there at the end like I did before. And I'm not even going to worry about filling, like making it meet all the way. And this is going to be darker. The iris is going to be darker than the pupil, not the iris. The pupil, this little thing, is going to be darker than the iris. So I will add a thicker outline. I don't know if you can hear this, but my dog's laying next to me on the couch and it's just snoring. So he's loud. Anything he does existing is loud for him. Anyway. So I like to make the iris outline a little bit thinner. And it makes it look lighter and airier. I don't know. It looks nice sometimes. I'm just gonna go in with the bottom eyelid and just kind of. This one, I think I'm gonna speed up a lot more. Maybe not quite yet, but sorry. For this particular style, I like my sketch to be almost as detailed as I want the outline to be. I mean, not quite, obviously, but if I'm, say, doing a super thick outline one, I probably won't have as clean as a sketch, but when I'm doing the super thin outline, since it is pretty time consuming, I do like my sketch to kind of be somewhat what I want the end result to be. Maybe not, if that makes sense. Like, normally I work on a pretty blocky sketch, but for this particular style, I like a more detailed sketch. Anyway, I'm going to just jump to the nose. I'll do the other eye in time lapse, but I'm going to jump to the nose because I like the nose to be thicker, almost the thickest part of the entire outline. So what I'm doing is I'm making an outline of my outline. I think it's kind of like an anime look, I guess, almost. I see it in anime sometimes, like that real thick outline on the nose. And I could honestly, and I like to make it taper to where it meets where the bridge is. I'm not gonna do the whole line. Anyway, I kind of like how this looks on its own, like leaving the outline of the outline, but I'm just gonna fill it in. And because these outlines are really thin, when I'm doing the bucket tool, if you do too much, it's going to black out your whole screen. So the bucket tool is kind of just a base. So it fills it in a little bit, but there's a lot of white marks. So I just go in and color it in. For this outline, I can't be quite as lazy with my coloring because the outlines are so thin that it makes it difficult to just bucket things in or select things in as much as I'd like. Anyway, so that is probably going to be the thickest outline in the whole picture. I might add a little bit more thickness on the chin as well. Or the cheek, not the chin. The cheek, but we'll see. I'll see how I feel. And for the nose, I did a line originally, like in my sketch I did a line. But for this, I think I'm going to make it a full nostril. So, just kind of make a little, instead of just making it, oh, there you go. I think I'm going to make it like an open nostril. So, add a little bit more in there. I'm not going to fill it in all the way. Okay. Yeah. So, and occasionally I'll turn my sketch off to see how it's looking. I need to clean it up a little bit because I see it's not totally filled in all the way. And just kind of clean it up so it looks like it, so the flow works better. Oh, wrong layer. There we go. Sometimes what I'll do too, so you have that little shadow for the nose. Sometimes I'll go in and I'll do that. And do like a little shadow outline on like say the nose and stuff, but I don't know if I'm gonna do that. Let me see how it looks. Nah, I don't think I'm gonna do that right now. Sometimes I like the way it looks when I do a shadow underneath, like an outline of the shadow underneath the nose. All right, I'm gonna jump into the lips. After the lips, I think I'm gonna time lapse for a little bit, but let me just kind of go in the process of the lips real quick. So for the top lip, if you do lips, not everybody just does lips. For the top lip, I like it really thin. In some cases, maybe I won't even do an outline for the lip at all, and I'll add the lip in the coloring stage, but I'm gonna outline the lip this time. Anyway, so I don't know what the anatomy of a lip is called. I think that's the Cupid's bow, I think. Anyway, I kind of make it really thin at the top, along the top, but then when it gets close to the bottom, I'll make it thicker. And a lot of this will be based on your pin. Oh my god, I can't talk. Pin pressure sensitivity. There we go. How much pin pressure you put down, or you can go down and like build on top. It just depends on what kind of pin what kind of tile you're doing, and just how you feel like doing it. Sometimes I'll build on top, like I'll do like the base shape, and then I'll build on top where I want it to be thicker. And sometimes I'll just do the thickness just right away. That's a little bit easier sometimes, but it depends on what I feel like doing. You could do either. You could either build up on top of your thin line and make it thicker, or you can just do it thick from the get-go. Now, this lip is going to be a little bit tricky because of how kind of blotchy my sketch is there. My dog's licking his face, so he's being loud again. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and time lapse for a minute. That wasn't a very long time lapse, but you know. For the bottom lip, I added of the lips, the bottom lip has the most thickness, just because that's where the most of the weight is, and also where the shadow kind of hits. This for this particular style, I kind of try to follow a rule of the thicker the light, the thickness of the line is heavily dependent on the heaviness of the object, and also sometimes I'll base it on my light source. So I'm gonna pretend kind of that there is a light. I'm not gonna I'm gonna color this, but I'm not gonna like shade it. But I'm gonna pretend there's a light coming from this direction. So my shadow is gonna be going that way. That's not gonna be too much of the focus for this, but for as I go, I might keep that into consideration as I'm outlining. Mainly, I'll apply the shadow and the outline in very light, heavy pictures, I guess. Shadow heavy pictures. But it's just something to keep into consideration if you're trying to figure out where you want your line width to kind of go. So for me, it's by heaviness, by shadows, or by what I want to stick out the most. So the nose doesn't follow the shadow rule too much. I want the nose to stick out the most. It's coming out of the face. So I don't want it to look two-dimensional. So the nose is the thickest outline. From there, though, I try to do either the shadow rule or where lines intersect, like I explained with the eyelashes, or where it's thicker. Hopefully that makes sense. There's a lot of other, like, people that can go into more detail about this. Like I said, I'm a little bit newer to this type of technique. It makes sense to me. I understand it, I think. I just have trouble explaining it, I guess. But there's other people that can probably explain it better if you look up Lineart tutorials. Then I guess what's the point of me making a tutorial if I'm just telling you to go look at someone else's tutorial? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and time-lapse the rest of the face, and we'll jump in when I feel necessary, I guess. So I just want to do a quick little tip while I'm thinking about it. So, as I am adjusting the outline, sometimes what I'll do, if I want to thin out an outline that like, oh, I made that a little bit too thick, or I want to make it even thinner, if you don't already know, well, one, I can take my eraser, but then I'd have to adjust my eraser settings. What I like to do is to go, like, still on my line art tool, I'll go over, if you don't already know about it, there's this little square up here that basically turns your tool into an eraser. So I'm going to turn my line art tool into an eraser, and then go in, and so I want to say I made this a little bit too thick, so I can go in and just kind of swish it, and it basically makes a more precise eraser. If I just want to thin out, like, it's especially helpful for, like, thinning out outlines. So, just a tip, I didn't know about this tool until, like, sometime this year, and I've been doing digital art, or I've been using Psy for 4 years, and I only just found out about it, and it's a very helpful thing, so just thought I'd, throw that in there. Just gonna jump in real quick while I'm doing the cheek. I'm going ahead and raising my minimum size up from 0.5 to 1. That's just because I know it's gonna be thicker anyway. So I'm just gonna start off a little thicker. And, you know, that way I don't have to keep building it up. It's already a little bit thicker. That's another way you can do it. You don't have to keep it, like, I like to keep my brush size consistent, but if you know something's going to be thicker, go ahead and make your line width thicker automatically or thinner automatically. I like building up. That's just, I don't know, I feel like I have more, I feel like I can add more varied line weight if I'm constantly just building on top of it rather than, like, going back and forth. But for places that I know are going to be thicker, might as well just make it a little bit thicker to start with. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not done with the cheek. I'm gonna go back to it, but I'm gonna go ahead and do the chin too, and just kind of show you. And I'm gonna lower it back again and make the chin. I'm gonna make the chin a little bit pointier. The chin doesn't have to be super thin, but I want to be a little bit pointier. Anyway. And then the neck. Going with the neck. I don't know if you can hear my dog snoring. He's still doing that. Anyway, okay, so where the chin and the neck, that's a pretty dramatic change. Like, they're not on the same level. The chin is going to be you know, it's more forward. It's not directly smacked on the neck. If I'm working in that makes sense. I mean, obviously, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you have a chin and a neck, you should know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm going to go in and just to make the differences quite clear, I'm going to add a pretty dramatic kind of like an artificial shadow effect. On my sketch, I have it a lot stronger, and when I did the thick outline, I include it as well, a lot thicker. But for this one, it's not going to be as strong, but I still want it to be seen, and I still want it to be kind of clear that I'm aware of the dimensional changes. So the underneath the chin, where the chin meets the neck, I do like a thicker outline as well. Just for even if it's just for a little bit. Like, not for the whole thing, but where it really comes down at. And then bring it back up to the chin. And then, yeah, it just separates them a little bit better. And then I'm going to go in with the cheek again, like I said I was going to do, and make the cheek just a little bit more out as well, just because it does protrude out a little bit. I'm not going to make it go out too much, but I'm not crazy about that cheek shape. Cheek shape. I could have done that a little better, but this isn't about the anatomy of the face. It's about the line art, and yeah. Alright, I'm going back to time-lapse, and then Alright, just gonna a quick go over of what my decisions whenever I was outlining that. So, I said before that I had a pretend light source, and I'm not super sticking true to it, but I try to keep it in consideration. So, I'm pretending the light's coming in from this way. And while I kind of didn't apply that to the cheek for, you know, reasons, when I got to the shoulder, I made it thinner, like the light was hitting the bone of the shoulder, or you know, whatever that bone, whatever, you know what I mean. It's an area that isn't as soft, so it's kind of like the bones there. So I don't know, but light bones, you know things. So the light hit that, so it's a little bit lighter. Here I made it a little bit lighter right here, but not quite as thin as here. If that makes sense. I'm trying to keep it kind of consistent with the lighting thing. I don't all if I was doing a full body, I'd probably be paying more attention to it. If I'm having a more direct light source, I'll be more conscious of it. But for this, it's just a real simple bust. I'm not even going to shade it, so it doesn't really matter. But it's just something I like to... Oh, I put that on the wrong line. There we go. It's just something to keep in consideration, and in my process, something I think about. So, just gonna continue onward to the hair. If you were paying attention or sticking around for when I was doing hair, what I explained before was, personally, this is a me choice. Most people probably think it's dumb or wrong, and they wouldn't be incorrect in thinking it's dumb or wrong. It's something I like, but I like to put the eyebrows on top of the hair. It's silly, but it's what I do. So I'm going to do that for this as well. Obviously, if you're not stupid, or I don't want to say stupid for the people that do it, because I do it. But you can do, if you were doing the hair on top of the eyebrows like God intended, you'd probably want to do your hair before your eyebrows. But since my eyebrows are on top, I did my eyebrows first. Or you can do it in either order and just whatever. But since I did the eyebrows first, since the eyebrows on top, I did the eyebrows first, and I will work around the hair. Around the eyebrows. What you could either do is make a separate layer and do them as separate pieces, and then erase. Or you can just work around them like I think I'm gonna do, and just kind of stop when I hit my eyebrow. Unless you want them to intersect. I've seen art styles where the lines will intersect. I don't like doing intersecting lines like that, like where the line art goes on top of each other. I've seen it done, especially like in anime. But you do what you want. That's just my quick little disclaimer. Or whatever, I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna get on to the hair. Kind of what I did similar before in the last line art style. I'll start off a little bit thicker, especially because we have these intersecting lines. So first I'm just gonna do quick. I'm gonna do the hair real quick, just without varying line weight. At first, I'm gonna add it, but overall, I want my hair outline to be mostly kind of thin. Clean up a little bit as I go. Anyway, I want it mostly kind of thin. It's also going to magically go behind my eyelashes too, because I do what I want because I want to. And if you are one of those people like me that put like the hair, like magical eyelashes and eyebrows that go above or go in the wrong order, you can do that. But don't be surprised if people criticize you for it. I get criticized for it sometimes. I don't care. I like it. Like I don't want to be one of the people that, that's my style. But if you're aware that you're breaking rules, you can break them. If you don't know you're breaking rules, you want to know the rules before you break them. Although I think everyone knows that your eyebrows are not on top of your hair. Besides the point, I'm just gonna outline the hair real quick I'm just gonna go ahead and outline the hair in thin line, and then I'm going to add on top of it. So I'll be back. Okay, so I'm almost done, but as you see, I just did like the thin one-sized outline around the hair, and I'm just gonna build up on top of it because I don't want it to be too thick. The hair is the lightest part, so I want it to kind of reflect that, you know, I mean, do it however you want. This is how I do it. So the hair's kind of the lightest, and where the most volume is going to be is where I'm going to put the focus on the outline, and also where shadows might be. So start off, I already kind of started here. It's going to be thick, or I'm gonna make the outline thicker and darker where the hair meets the forehead, because there's gonna, if I were to shade this, that's where the shadows would fall, would be where the hair and the forehead meet up here. And I'm going to try to keep that, just even when doing the inner part of the hair, keep that in consideration. And also where the hair starts, so say like here, it's going to be a little bit thicker than, but not too thick, I don't want it too thick, than where it falls at the end. So at the ends of the hair, where the points are, I probably won't thicken those too much. I would want those to be the lightest part. So I'm gonna go ahead and time lapse it, and hopefully you can kind of see what I'm going for and what I'm talking about. Okay, this is my third attempt at trying to record this audio because my file kept on getting corrupted. But anyway, if you've noticed, whenever I was doing the hair, that in this little area, I made the outline a lot thicker than, say, the other areas. I mean, I'm not done yet, but I just wanted to jump into this before while it's fresh on the mind. Basically, because this piece of the bangs, this part of the bangs is kind of in front of this part of the hair, it's coming forward. It has more, I want to make sure it's separated and you know, okay, this is a separate part of the hair. So if I was to shade it, I'd probably put, you know, something there, and this would be in front of it. Same for if I was to go over and decide to, when I get over here, I'll probably do about the same thing. Just darken this quite a bit. This outline, sorry. And so this will be in front of this. And if I was doing like more detailed hair or longer hair that had like wafts of hair coming through, which I didn't because I'm lazy, but if I did have more line work to where there's intersecting hair pieces, like, you know, hairdo, I would make sure to bring attention to that in the outlining. So certain pieces that are kind of coming forward or more prominent than the others, I would make a little bit thicker. That's probably common knowledge, but I'm just kind of throwing it in there. Just you know, not everybody will be doing, you know, simpler hairstyles. Just food for thought. So I will continue with my time lapse, and hopefully this audio does not get corrupted. Alright, so I'm back. I went ahead and colored it. I shaded it a little bit. It was kind of a lazy shade job, but I just kind of wanted to show an example of what it would look like after shaded, because I think it makes quite a difference. And with this particular thin outline style, usually if I'm going to be doing something like this, then I'm going to go the extra mile of shading it, and it really does make a difference. I mean, of course, I'd be putting more effort into making the shading more accurate, choosing the colors more carefully, but I just kind of wanted to do a quick little something to show, okay, this is kind of what it's gonna look like if you go the full, you know, mile. But of course it also depends on, you know, your own coloring style, your own shading style. But anyway, just kind of trying to think if there's anything else I should point out, any other tips I should give, but I think that's about it. Just kind of compare it to the last, the really thick out. Contrast it and compare it to the last style, like, very different. You can get a completely different look just from how you outline it. So, I don't know, that's why I like playing with different outline styles. I can kind of draw in the same way I'm comfortable with, but get a completely different look depending on, you know, how it's outlined and how it's colored, and it's fun to play with, and it's good to know multiple ways of doing things, so kind of get out of a comfort zone if you're trapped in a comfort zone. That's what for me, this outline style was me getting out of my comfort zone when I first started it, and now, while it is, I want to say a challenge, it is a little bit more challenging, but it's also pretty, kind of, engaging and relaxing, I guess, to just play with something new and just kind of get lost in playing with the outline weight and stuff. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. Time to go towards the next style before I spend another hour messing around here. Alright, so here is the pen settings that I generally use for this third art style, and that is the difference between the last one. The only difference is the size. So in the last one, the thin outline, I do 0.5 to 1, and I might sometimes go up to like 1.5 or 2, but not often. It also depends on how big the canvas is. So obviously, if you're at a different zoom in, or depending on bigger canvases, it's gonna change. But just on average, that's usually like how it goes. But anyway, for this particular one, and this is gonna be a thicker, just to kind of refresh you, it's gonna be a thicker, more consistent outline. Not too much is put into the line depth. It's going to be more consistent, and I'll also show how to color the outline as well. Anyway, to make sure that the tin is going to be as thick as I want it to be, I'm just gonna, and yeah, that looks about good. If you wanted it, no, not too big. Nah, 10 looks good. 10 is usually where I have it at. It also, this is a headshot, so if it was a full body, my canvas size might be a different size, and so different things reflect onto it, but 10 looks good for me. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out and get started. So this is real simple. I think the major part of this one is the brush itself and just how crisp it is. The last thin outline style I did, honestly, the brush, I guess the pen doesn't quite matter as much because it's so tiny. I do like a crisp pen, and for this one, the crispness, I think, is what makes it. It's very clean. and it gets the job done. So I'm gonna do the eyes and the nose and kind of show you. It's really like, I don't feel there's a lot to go into. It's pretty straightforward. I used the S7 almost completely in this one. I don't jump around too much. The S7 stabilizer, I mean. And for me, that is what gives the cleanest of the outline look. And it does, this outline does taper a little bit, but I generally kind of keep a general control on the same width. If you don't want, if it tapers too much for you, you can, if it tapers too much to your liking, and the tapering being the little tail at the end, you could adjust the minimum size, so like even by like 5% or 10%, 15%. It'll, if you want a super consistent line. I don't mind the tapering. I have a good control on it. See, if I put it at 10 anyway. My throat's getting a little tired. Basically what I'm trying to say is, if you don't like a lot of tapering, or if you don't have a lot of control on your pen pressure and you want a very consistent line, you can play with the minimum size, and that's really the main thing to it. I'm just gonna start going at it. There's nothing super special about what I do. I guess the main part will be the coloring, because outlining it is pretty straightforward. Do I want to, just deciding if I want to color in that pupil or not with the, I'm gonna go ahead and just color it in. It's pretty straightforward, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into time lapse, and we'll jump back in if I feel there's anything I need to say. Well, real quick, I'll do the top lip, just because the top lip is the thing that when I outline it, I always make it thinner. If I outline it. A lot of times in this style, which I think I won't outline it just to show you. A lot of times, this is a me choice, personal choice. I will do the lip. I'm going to go ahead and do it on the underlayer. And I'm just going to borrow some color from here. I'm going to go ahead and just make the lip right here. And I'm not going to give it an outline. I might give it an outline later if I decide. But this is a me choice. I love doing lips, so not everybody will do lips. I love doing lips. I almost always do lips. So I'm just gonna do this real quick and show you. See, there is cute little lip underneath, poking underneath. Make sure it's on a separate layer if you decide to do something like that. I just like the way it looks. It's cute. It does its own thing. No outline needed. Anyway, I'm getting into the time lapse now. Alright, so that was pretty, basic, kind of self-explanatory, really simple, not much fanciness going on. I used some of the techniques from the last two towards it, just closing in some edges and stuff like that, but it's really straightforward. I don't do much for the variation of line width. I think the only time I really kind of thin out my lines, and not even by that much, is probably in the hair, just for the strands. Otherwise, I don't do much fancy line work. I think this is the one I get the most comments on about smooth line work, and so I feel kind of bad that's the simplest explanation, but really, I think for me, the secret to the smooth outlines for this particular one is just the brush settings themselves, which are, it's just a hard edge. I don't know how to go into more than that. And then the S7 stabilizer. I think without that, let me try to just I can't. This is me trying to outline without a stabilizer, and it's pretty pretty sad. Maybe if I went really slow I could, like, but even so, it's just with the stabilizer on, like, that's just so crazy how fast I can do something that if I was to try to do that traditionally with pen and paper, oh my god, I'd be killing myself and getting so frustrated because I have very shaky hands. So, anyway, that's the secret. S7 stabilizer and a nice pen brush. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get into the line coloring now. My dog is trying to bring me his tennis ball and is getting upset because I'm not throwing it. Anyway, I'm going to get into coloring the outlines now. Well, actually, first I'm going to color it because the coloring will determine the outline color. So I will do that real quick. For this particular one, I think this is the easiest of all of them to color for me. I do basically the same thing I did for the first one. Just select. This one I can have a higher color difference because the outlines are more consistent. Unlike the thickest outline, which it's like, yeah, they're really thick, but sometimes it tapers into really small. This particular style, I personally close all of the edges pretty good, and since the line is pretty consistent, I can pretty easily color select. So this style, both for coloring and outlining, I think takes me the quickest of all of them. Just because it just comes so naturally to me. So anyway, let me just color it real quick. I'll go ahead and just put it on time elapse just for the sake of coloring. It shouldn't take me long though. I'm not going to bother shading this one. I'm just going to go straight into coloring the line art. So, there's two ways that you could do it. I mean, there might be more than that, but there's two ways that I know to do it. So, there's either working directly on top of your line art layer. So, I'm just going to name it. And you can work on this layer and just preserve the opacity and just, you know, color it as you'd like. For me, I sometimes if I want to correct things or change the color, it gets a little bit complicated to do that way, but you totally can if that's the way you want to do it. The way that I like to do it is I create a new folder on top of my line art layer. So I have my line art layer, and then I have a new folder, and I'll turn that folder into a clipping layer. So if you're not familiar with clipping layers, basically just follow my little mouse here, clipping layer, click it, it's just on top. It's just basically anything that you draw within this, well, it's not the layer, this is the folder, so any layers I make within this folder will only work, or will only go on top of that line art layer. So yeah, it just makes things easier to, and I like, you don't have to have it in a folder, you can just make layers above it, but I like folder to make it easy, to make it organized by color. It just makes it easier. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the hair and just start just coloring on top of the hair. And the color you pick, if you're doing the clipping layer method like I am, you can decide the color later. So I can start with this color and I can change it later. If I was to be working on top of the line art layer and on the same layer and preserve opacity, then I'm gonna have some trouble if I want to change the color later. Say I don't like this shade of blue, for example, I can just click preserve opacity and and just change the color as I please, and it just, anyway, I'm just gonna get into it and do the coloring. And I'm not trying to make this a total beginner side tutorial. So I'll just go ahead and I'm just going to color the hair, and I'm not going to touch the skin. I'm trying not to touch the skin layer to make it easier whenever I get to the skin layer, and I'll show you what I mean when I get there. So I'm just going to do only the hair. So the hair is done. Honestly, sometimes I'll just leave like the outlines black and then just do like color the hair outline, and I really like the way that looks, but for the sake of this tutorial I am going to do the whole colored outline, like the entirety of it. And this color technique can be applied to the previous outline styles as well. I don't like the way it looks with the super thick outline, like changing the color of it drastically, but sometimes I'll do it with the thin outline. It's not as noticeable, but sometimes I'll go in and change the hue of the thin outline color, like in the places where it's more prominent. But anyway, I'm just gonna focus. Not gonna go too much into that right now. I'm just gonna focus on this one. Anyway, gonna go ahead and do the. I'm gonna do the eyelash color. I like colored eyelashes. I don't usually, unless I leave the outline black. I don't really like super black outlines. If the entire outline or most of the outline is not black, I don't like black in my color palette. Straight black in my color palette. So I'm just gonna make a slightly, like a really dark blue for the eyelashes and the iris. And this is just a personal choice. Like I said, you do what you want to do, and you know, don't let me stop you. So I'm just gonna, this will just take a second, and then I'll just jump into the skin tone after that. And see where the iris meets the nose, it's a little bit not tricky. I just make like a pretend there's a new outline there. So just make an outline shape so it's not a jarring. Oh, I wasn't gonna color the. Oops. I wasn't gonna color this. This part I was gonna make the same color as the hair, so I'm just gonna do that right there. In this style in particular, or just in general, I like limited color palettes. So a lot of times I'll color sample from other areas in the piece so that I have color kind of consistently the same, if that makes sense. So alright, I'm gonna get into the skin now. Well, I'm gonna do I'll do the skin, and then I'll decide if I want to do the mouth a different color. So the skin I'm going to do on a layer that is underneath the hair and underneath the eyes. So the skin is the very last thing that I'm going to do. It's going to be the easiest part. So I just decided my skin color. And also, just a tip. Oh, what's going on? One second. Let me fix that. Just a tip on picking color. Like, I like to desaturate the color a little bit and play with the color. If you do the color just like barely darker, sometimes it's hard to see and it doesn't look very good. Like, for example, this, it doesn't, for the skin color, that doesn't look very good. It's only slightly darker, but you don't want to do it too, well, I guess the darker you go is usually fine, but I like to find a nice balance. So I'll just play around. I play around with it, and that's another reason I really like to separate the color, the hair from the skin, from everything else when I'm coloring the outline, because I can play with it, especially if I'm going to shade it, which I'm not going to. If I'm going to shade it, I probably would have shaded it by now. And okay, so I found a color that I kind of like, but it looks a little bit off on the lips because, and like I said, this is a me problem because I do lips. If you don't do lips, you might have to deal with this problem. So what I'll do is I'll go make a new layer above it, and I'll just do the mouth a different color than the rest of the skin because it's around the lips anyway. And I just kind of make it a little bit more reddish or a little bit more pinkish, so it doesn't, like, because that beige color didn't look good with the lips, but this cream, this peachy color looks a lot better, I think, anyway. I'm gonna play with it a little bit more. There we go, that's fine enough. Anyway, there we go, those outlines are colored. I really like the way that it looks. It's a look I go for a lot. It's kind of like a Disney inspired for me anyway. Look, like the Disney princesses, they have the colored outline. Sometimes in the movie, I guess not now, they're doing 3D now, but like Disney Renaissance, sometimes they'll have the black outline, sometimes they'll have those colored outlines. And that's kind of what inspired me for this particular look, if you couldn't tell by the way that I draw eyes and mouths and noses. But that's besides the point. I'm just gonna do a little bit of touch up on the color now. Whenever I don't shade, I'll do like a fake light. And just kind of splash some. I'll go to the, I'll have all my colors in a color folder. This is besides the point. This is a little bit afterthought of the outlining. Since I'm here, I might as well explain it a little bit. I make a layer above my color layer, but separate from my outline layer, and just kind of splash a little bit of white in there. That's a lot of white, but I'll lower the opacity, and it just adds some interest. I'll do it again on a different layer, and this time do a little outline, color splash, white splash, whatever. I did this on the other styles too a little bit. It's just a thing that I do sometimes, so that has nothing to do with the tutorial. I'm just kind of splashing in there, and alright, there, that's fine. That's as far as I'll go. So that's 1 through 3. 1, 2, 3. And well, as far as editing goes, it looks like I have an hour and a half of footage. It's an hour and a half of footage too much, but let's see if I want to do a quickie on the lineless style. Let's see how it goes. Well, first, just kind of go through what we did. Got your super thick and dramatic, super thin and kind of detailed, and then your cute, simple, colored. So sure, why not? Let's jump into the 4th style, and I'll try to be brief and just kind of go through it, but not super too much, because I've done it already, and I'll go ahead and link that tutorial in the description if you want to watch a whole other 45 minutes of me talking. But I'll just start it and get it through as fast as I can. I'll be a little bit quicker in this one, because this is just kind of it's a quickie. Anyway, I start with this one with I usually use the size 10 pen, and that's my regular lineout pen. I'll jump between size 10 and maybe smaller for the coloring. So first, I'll just, before I start coloring, because it's not an outline, it's a color, I'll start with the face, and I'll just outline the face details like I did before. So I will time-lapse me outlining the face, and that's just going to be just like this one, the outlining process. And then once it gets to different, I will come back to you. So alright, so that was simple enough. I did the lips on a separate layer like I did with the last one, so the lips are separate from the outlines. And I went ahead and blocked in the iris, sorry, not the iris, the pupil and the eyelashes together. And the iris I have not done yet, because anything that can be anything that is a different color from the rest of the face will have its own shape. So it's not going to be with these. And let me go, I'm gonna go ahead and, I'm borrowing the color a lot from this last one I did, just to, because this is very color-based, so it's good to have my colors planned out ahead of time. I can adjust the colors later, but it's just easier if I have an idea of what colors I want to use. And bear in mind that you might want to adjust your colors so that they look good next to each other, because for a lot of these colors there won't be anything in between them, so you don't want a super high saturated or super low saturated. You want a nice balance to kind of, so it's easy on the eyes. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do the iris real quick, and that's real simple enough. I'm going to do that highlight on top of the outlines. I'm not going to change the color. Normally, I actually change the color of the outlines really early on, but I'm just going to wait for that just yet. Just for this particular style, I generally, I change the color of the outline as I go. I'll get to that once I get to it, though. Oh, and for the eyebrows, I'll go ahead and do the eyebrows. I'm just gonna sample from, I'm cheating because I'm sampling from this other image, but whatever. You can choose if you want to separate each layer, each section by color. I used to do that, so I would have my eyebrows on one layer, my lips on another, and all this. Then it gets really layer heavy, so I'm just going to, since I already know what colors I'm going to pick, I don't have to worry about changing them too much. I'm going to do my eyebrows on the same layer as my lips, and keep my outlines all on the same layer, and just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to do it by what images come up first. I know that's confusing. I'm not going to get super too into it. I'll let you decide how you want to organize your layers. Anyway, okay. I have my eyebrows. I'm going to throw the eyebrows onto the same layer as my outlines, because my outlines are going to be, no matter what, these guys, my face outlines. When I get to my hairline outlines and stuff, that's going to be a different story. But my face outlines are all together. So these are the things that are going to be on the front. My lips and my eyes are doing their own thing. And now I'm going to start on the hair. I'm not going to do the shape of the face just yet. I'm going to do the hair. So on a separate layer, I'm going to make the hair its own folder. So I'm going to make the hair underneath everything else so far. I'm going to do the same color. I'm going to do the hair the same color as the eyes, because I like a really limited, or I like a simple color palette. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm not going to bother with the streakies right now like that. I'm not going to bother with right now. I'm going to do the outer shape. And because since I'm going to do the outer shape of the hair, I'm going to actually lower my brush size to just maybe about 5, so that it's a little bit more, I want it to be as close to my sketch as possible, because if I do the outline too thick, like once I color it in, it's going to make everything bigger than it really is. So I'm going to do a smaller outline. I'm going to do a 5, and just follow my sketch to where it kind of, it's hard to explain. I don't want it to get too big. So once I color it in, it's going to be a little bit bigger than, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just going to do it and hopefully catch on. I'm going to be a little bit quicker, try to be quicker in this one. I'm going to actually take my hair color now and use that to outline my face. So the cheek and all that is going to be outlined with my hair color until I get to where the hair stops. Once I get to the hair stops, I'm going to just do the outline of the hair. I'm going to jump into this time lapse now, so hopefully you have an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, so I have the outline, like the outer part of the hair, done. I haven't filled it in yet, and what I want to make what you want to make sure is everything is a closed shape. So That's why I went ahead and I outlined the face with the hair color, because I want to make sure everything is closed in. And I'm not worried about the outlines, like the details, just yet. So this is where your bucket tool comes in handy, and it's very important. You want to get to this number at least 200, but the higher the better. The closest you can get to the highest number, the better. Is just going to affect the overall quality of the image. White little speckles will hide in your picture, so that's too high. There we go. 213. Let's try 220. 23. Okay. I'm going to undo that, though, because I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to keep that in mind. My bucket tool is ready. Now I'm going to go in and a layer above it and make my hair outline layer. And this is going to be, make sure this is not going to affect your face outline. You want this on a separate layer. That's why I have it a hair folder. So I'm making a hair outline layer, and I'm going to bring my outline back to 10. And I'm going to go in with whatever color, it doesn't matter just yet. And where my detail lines are, I'm going to outline those, but I'm going to try to stay within the confines of my outer hair layer. I'm going to try not to add too much to outside of that. I'm going to try to keep within the confines of it and try not to... I don't want an outline, basically. I don't want to just do that. I want to only add outlines where the detail lines are, if that makes sense. Hopefully actions speak better than words. You can kind of tell what I'm doing. And I just kind of clean it up a little bit on the inside so it's not too... I don't want too much line work going on in the inside. I want a limited amount. And I'm really sorry if you can hear lawn work going on outside. They're doing landscaping out in my apartment. Fun. Okay, so I'm going to do a time lapse now, and you can just kind of see what I'm doing, and hopefully it makes sense. Okay, so my detail work looks done. I'm just going to slap one more right here, and then I'm ready to go fill in my other layer. So I'm going to go back to my outer hair layer, make sure the color is selected that is the same as the bleh, your bucket tool on a high number, and fill it in. And I'm going to go ahead and change the hair outline color. And as you can see, for this one I did darker eyebrows, and I went ahead and did that beforehand. And I'm going to actually, you don't have to do this, this is the way I do it. I'm just going to change the color of my outlines to the same color as the eyebrows. And there we go. I'll worry about the skin outline when I get to that. Okay, so now I'm going to I can either do the next step on my face outline layer, or I can make a new one. It doesn't matter. I guess I'm just going to do it on the same layer. So I'm going to go in and add my little chin here. Sometimes I won't even do this, and I can show you in a bit the alternative. Sometimes I won't even add an outline here because I'll add a shadow instead. I don't typically shade this style, right? I don't typically shade it, but what I will do is add little splashes of shading or gradients. I'll show you what I mean when I get to it. I'm gonna go ahead and give it the neck and outline right here, just to kind of connect it, and throw these little collarbone in there, and it looks like I am ready for the body, or the body and the face. So this is going to be in one motion. The head and the shoulders, there we go, are going to be the same layer, and that's going to be underneath everything. So this is going to be the very bottom layer. And obviously, if you're doing a full body, this is a lot more complicated with a full body that's clothed. It's a lot more steps and a lot more thought goes into it, but it's a little bit easier for a bust. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my skin color ready, or you can start with a BS color and change it later, but I'm just going to, I have a skin tone ready, so I'm going to use it. So I'm gonna start with the shoulders and just do the shoulders the same way as I did the hair. And I'm gonna do a smaller brush, like a 4.5, but you can use whatever size you want. You just want to make sure it's not too big, and also you'll be able to close it in. So first, before I see there's an opening there, but I'll close it in a bit. So just gonna do the same process as the hair. And then just grab, and this doesn't look great. I normally don't do busts in this style, but it's for a tutorial. It's fine. Okay, now I'm gonna go into the chin and do the same thing. Make sure it's pretty accurate. With the chin, you want to make sure that your outline here meets up with where the hair is. You don't want it to be like that, and you want to make sure everything kind of looks natural. Okay, now that what you can see is out of the way, now I'm going to connect the lines, and by doing this, I'm going to color underneath the hair, and just in one motion collect all the way over here, and you can't see any of that. And if you did it right, there you go, it closes up perfectly. So, and then the last thing to do is just add the whites of the eyes and some other details. That should just take a minute here. So the whites of the eyes. If I was really trying harder, I'd make sure that everything looked more balanced, but I'm just kind of getting it done with. And I'm going to change the outline color. I'm just going to use the same colors I used this time. I might adjust them. So this one, you can either work on the same layer, or you can do what I did before. I'm just going to do it the same layer to be quick. And I have my preserve opacity on. I'm going to wait on the lips. Kind of do the same thing as before. It's really lazy, but it's convenient that I already have a color layer underneath mine. Sometimes I like making the eyelashes the same color as the hair, but in this case I will not do that. For this, it's a little bit trickier. You got to decide where you want the bridge of the nose to end and the eye begin. And I'm going to trim that down a little bit with... There we go. That's close enough. And for where the skin of the eyelid meets the hair, I'm just going to go over with my eyelash, or actually I'm going to do the hair outline color. That way it looks like the hair's covering it, and I'll do that same right here. So I'm just going to do that with the hair outline color, and then I'll do the rest of the eye with the darker color. And this would probably be easier if I did the separate layers, but for time's sake and simplicity's sake, I'm just going to do it on this one layer. Do the same with the eyelids, and then the lips. Do the same thing I did last time. So we're almost done. Wait, let me turn it up. Okay, there we go. Almost done. Okay, and I don't like it super flat. I like flat colors. I don't want it super flat, so I'm just going to add some blush. So on the layer above the skin tone, I'm going to make a clipping layer and do a blush. I did this for the other styles too, but this one I think it's a little bit more crucial to... For me, it just adds a lot more when you add those little touches of splashes of color. Oh, a lot of times the blush color, I'll use the color of the lips if they're not too extreme to add some consistency. My dog is snoring again, so sorry if you can hear that. Okay, I'm not totally happy with the skin outline color for this, but I'm not gonna mess with it because then I'd have to play around too much. The last step I'm going to do is to add some light shading, some really light shading, and I'm just going to borrow my past shading color. And whenever I do this light shading, I do it under the nose and under the chin. So, just a real simple little thing. And when I was talking about earlier about not having to do a chin outline, if you did that shadow good enough, you can just remove the chin outline. Like, if anything, just make that shadow a little bit darker. Maybe not that color. Whatever, that's fun of me. Trying to find a nice balance. There we go. And, because I like to limit the amount of outlines as possible, like, as much as I can. So, that's good. That's good enough for me. Oop. Need to make an adjustment here. Oop, 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 oop. Okay, the very last step that I'll do to add some more, so it's not as flat, is if you keep all of your, well, keep it all in a folder, put everything in a folder if it's not in a folder, and above that folder, like, and that's everything, I make a new layer, make it a clipping layer, and I turn a luminosity on, and just kind of, and luminosity and my color effects over here, and just kind of add a light little something like I did before. That it's just a really simple lighting thing. It's just something I like to do. And I'll do the same. I'll add a little bit of, wow, that looks really bad right now, but if you lower the opacity, there we go, lower the opacity. And I'm just gonna do the pretend there's light hitting. It's lazy, but it's easy. Just a pretend light source going on. And I'm gonna lower the opacity a little bit more because there's no outlines to balance, like to really like hold back certain things. It's really important that you be careful with, don't make things too bright. It makes it hard, especially if you have a white background, it makes it hard to see. So you really need to have a good sense of color going on. Alright, the very last step that I'm going to do is I'm going to make another layer above, or underneath my lighting layers, and above my color layer, and I'm just going to make a multiply layer. I'm just going to choose a kind of a dark color and go in with my watercolor brush. I'm sorry, I never explained the watercolor brush, but just a soft brush. Whatever brush you use to blend, it doesn't matter. And I just go in, and this is going to be a temporary, like it looks kind of bad right now, and I just kind of go against my lighting a little bit, where I want it to be a little bit darker. And there we go. It adds a fake sense of depth, but I like it. I like the way that it looks. So when I don't feel like shading, and for this style, I don't shade, generally. There we go. It's done. They're all done. So, that is that. Hope this was helpful. Hope you learned something. Hope it wasn't a 2 hours a waste of time, and that's if you even watched the whole 2 hours. I don't think there will be very many people that will, but anyway, hopefully this was helpful to someone, so it wasn't just a waste of time. Let me know if it was helpful. I don't know. Anyway, let me know if there's anything else you want me to go over. I'll try to consider making more tutorials. They are pretty long for me. I don't know. I don't have a balance. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up, and I'll put the images up on the doodad so you can see all the differences and all that fun stuff.